Biden, as I discussed yesterday, while everybody else was asleep at the wheel and all of your content creators was out there at the beach, Anton from AntonDaniels.com actually had a lot of information that we had to get into. So we did the live stream yesterday where we brought the young lady on there that was talking about whether or not women can compete in America. And then on top of that, we did a second show yesterday where we basically dropped the information and the breakdown of why Kamala Harris was going to be selected in the first place. And I did that before they even endorsed Kamala Harris because I already knew what the play is. I'm paying attention. I got my people in the streets talking about it. And I'm going to tell you what the real play is today. We're going to really break that down. But before we do so, let's get into the news of him dropping out and endorsing Harris in the first place, and then we're going to get Trump's reaction.
President Joe Biden has just announced that he is dropping out of the 2024 presidential race. In a stunning letter that was just released moments ago by his campaign on X, formerly known as Twitter, Biden wrote, quote, that it has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president, and while it has been my intent.
I want to preface this by saying that we're going to get a lot of CNN coverage today because we got to see Van Jones crying and stuff like that. I haven't seen it yet. But we're going to get a lot of CNN coverage today because we like to go across the different platforms in order to understand exactly what's happening. But let's continue.
To seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. He goes on to say that he will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about his decision. Just a stunning announcement from President Joe Biden that he intends to step down as a candidate in the 2024 election.
Let me read the actual letter. I believe this is it right here. Let me show it to you guys. So this is the letter. Hold on. Let me see if I can get a bigger version of this real quick. Just for the people out here in these streets, we want to make sure that we get the full shebang. We don't want to do it halfway. We want to get it the full way. I don't like that one. Need a bigger letter. Is this a bigger one? There we go. All right. Over the past 3.5 years, we have made great progress as a nation, it says. Today, America has the strongest economy in the world. We've made historic investments in rebuilding our nation and lowering prescription drug costs for seniors and in expanding affordable health care to a record number of Americans. We provided critically needed care to 1 million veterans exposed to toxic substances, passed the first gun safety law in 30 years, appointed the first African-American woman to the Supreme Court, who don't even really know what a woman is, and passed the most significant climate legislation in the history of the world. America has never been better positioned to lead than we are today. He goes on to say, I know none of this could have been done without you, the American people. Together, we overcame a once-in-a-century pandemic and the worst economic crisis since the Great Depression, which I believe was manufactured, but that's just my own personal opinion. We've protected and preserved our democracy, and we've revitalized and strengthened our alliances around the world. It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president. And while it has been my intention to seek re-election, I believe it is in the best interest of my party and the country for me to stand down, all right, and to focus solely on fulfilling my duties as president for the remainder of my term. I will speak to the nation later this week in more detail about my decision, which, of course, Anton from AntonDaniels.com will be going live and breaking it down for you guys. For now, let me express my deepest gratitude to all those who have worked so hard to see me reelected. I want to thank Vice President Kamala Harris, Cam. You know, I've been calling her Cam for a minute because I like my little ghetto girls. We're going to get into her for a minute. For being an extraordinary partner in all of this work. And let me express my heartfelt appreciation to the American people for the faith and the trust that you've placed in me. I believe today what we always have, and that there's nothing America can't do. When we do it together, we just have to remember we are the United States of America. He also went on Twitter. Let me see if I can pull that up. And while I'm pulling that up on Twitter, Let me go ahead and play the rest of this video.
I want to go straight to CNN White House correspondent Priscilla Alvarez, who was traveling with President Biden in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Priscilla, what are you learning?
Alex, this is a remarkable development, and it comes after a morning in which we heard more calls for the president to step down from members of his party, including, for example, Senator Joe Manchin. Now, the president in this letter released only moments ago walks through his accomplishments as president. And also, if I can read you this part, it says, "It has been the greatest honor of my life to serve as your president." He goes on to
We read all of that. We got you, baby.
As president, we marry partner to a wave of calls over recent weeks for the president to step aside, to withdraw from this race. And this was something that, despite the president getting back on the campaign trail, despite private conversations with multiple lawmakers, and despite a campaign that up until this point had maintained, even just yesterday, that he was in this race, it appears that we hit that breaking point. Now, of course, the president has been at his residence here in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. He has been self-isolating because he was diagnosed with COVID earlier in the week. It was that diagnosis that pulled him off of the campaign trail at a pivotal moment. He was in Nevada. He was shoring up support with Black and Latino voters. And it was before one of his last events that he got that positive COVID diagnosis and had to be blitzed back here to the East Coast, to Delaware, where he has since been self-isolating. It has been
I'm not even sure that I believe that he got the vid. I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not sure that me personally, that I believe, again, all we can go by is what they say, and I think that you guys should draw your own conclusion. I believe that that was the play ultimately when they realized that, hey, man, listen, you keep being senile, you keep tripping up the steps, you had a horrible debate performance, we don't believe you, you need more people when it comes to whether or not you can get elected. And once they seen what was happening at the Republican National Convention and that it was solidarity and it was Dallas mayors that was switching over from being a Democrat to being Republican, and Democratic cities is burning nationwide. And they said, man, listen, you taking us all down with you. Nancy Pelosi even came out. If y'all not following Nancy Pelosi's portfolio, investment portfolio, you missing out across the board. And so I believe personally, I'm not sure that I believe that he actually was going to step down. I think that it was planned, and I don't even believe that he wrote the letter that he wrote. Of course he didn't write the letter that he wrote. Not even sure that he can type. But as we experience elder abuse and Biden continued to ride the wave of no longer being able to raise money, and the donors started to turn against him, and you started to see this flood, Kamala Harris was absolutely positively positioning herself to take over. And I believe that this was the play. I said that it was the play all along. I've been saying this for years. Hey, man, listen, this is what's going to happen. Kamala Harris, they're going to play her into getting into the president's office. And this is how she going to do it. I broke it down line by line. I've been on it for literally over 2 years at this point. And I've been talking to you guys on the Millionaire Morning Show. And I said, listen, Kamala Harris is not in there by happenstance. It doesn't matter how crazy she is or incompetent and her inability to even be able to be the border czar or anything like that. But we're going to get into that later on in the show. I said she's not the person that we need to have as the president of the United States of America. Would you ever follow a Kamala Harris? But lo and behold, they did it. Y'all got short memories. Y'all don't want to admit that we actually was on it and we was preparing ourselves and we was actually putting ourselves in a position. I'm telling you that interest rates is going to be changing. They're going to be lowering interest rates once they say that inflation gets down under 2%, all of that, right? Let's go over to Trump, right? Trump had a reaction to it, and some people was expecting for him to ultimately be nice about it since he just survived an assassination attempt and all of that. But instead, he tripled down.
ABC's editorial producer, John Santucci. John, on the other end of this, you have former President Donald Trump's campaign. The former president is just after surviving this attempted assassination on his been back out on the campaign trail. And the Trump campaign has been notably a little bit more quiet on President Biden following this debate, a sign that maybe they really wanted to see him stay on the ballot in November. What more are we learning from the Trump campaign about how they're responding to this and also how they're preparing to now face off against Vice President Kamala Harris?
Rachel, literally, as you were just introducing me, we just got a statement from former President Donald Trump. I'm going to read the entire thing, Rachel. It's posted to his Truth Social account. It reads, quote, "Crooked Joe Biden was not fit to run for president and is certainly not fit to serve and never was. He only attained the position of president by lies, fake news, and not leaving his basement. All those around him, including the doctors and the media, knew that he wasn't capable of being president, and he wasn't. And now look what he's done to our country with millions of people coming across our border, totally unchecked, unvetted, many from prisons, mental institutions, and a number of terrorists." He goes on to say, "We will suffer greatly because of his presidency, but we will remedy the damage he has done very quickly." Trump goes on to end the statement, "Make America Great Again." Of course, the signature line, Rachel, as you know all too well. Listen.
So let me ask y'all a question, right? Because I don't necessarily disagree with what he's saying, but there's a lot of people that came out after he said that he was no longer fit to run for president of the United States of America. Okay, well, if you're unfit to run for president of the United States of America, as House Speaker Mike Johnson wrote on X, he said, "At this unprecedented juncture in American history, we must be clear about what just happened. The Democratic Party forced the Democratic nominee off the ballot with just over 100 days before the election." He also called for Biden to resign from President of the United States of America. Senator Josh Hawley, who a lot of you guys loved as a result of him grilling the Boeing CEO on his pay and his safety record with regard to the people, he goes on to say, then resign your office. If you can't run for a mere political campaign, you can't be president, which I don't necessarily disagree with. How are you able to run the United States and be a leader of the free world, but you're unable to actually be able to run in an election campaign? How are you able to be able to run the free world, but you're unable to run an election campaign? You can't even campaign for president of the United States of America, but you got to crisscross the country, take care of business, compete against world leaders, make sure that the economy is humming and booming, pass legislation. How are you able to run for president, or how aren't you able to run for president of the United States of America, but you are still fit to actually carry on in office? Which just tells me personally that he's never been running office in the first place. It's never been about him. It's always been by the establishment. Vivek Ramaswamy actually did a really, really, really good interview, and I'm going to break that down tomorrow because we have so much to go over today. But he did a really great interview, and he said, listen, Republicans are not running against a particular candidate. They're not running against Joe Biden. They were never running against Joe Biden. They're not running against Kamala Harris. And I'm going to break down and explain to you, thank you for the super chats, I'm going to break down and explain to you why you actually aren't running against specific candidates. You're running against a machine. You're running against a machine. You're running against a party, not a candidate. When people are evaluating whether or not they're going to vote yay or nay, they're voting whether or not they're actually supporting a specific party, not a candidate, not policy, not what's best for you and your family, not what's best in your neighborhoods, not any of that. You're voting off of pure emotion for a party. That is it. You're determining whether or not you're going to support the Democratic Party or you're going to support the Republican National Party. That's it. You're not voting for, you never were voting for Joe Biden in the first place. Him resigning, which we all predicted, which I talked about extensively over the last, I don't know how long, was already in motion. This is a motion. This is a movement. This is a play. You don't think that they was already setting up Kamala Harris? I got to hold back. I got to hold back because we're going to get into it. We're going to get into it. Let me read some of these.